Hi there, grade 12 learners, and welcome to our exam prep session, where in this video we are going to be looking at the NSC CAT theory exam that took place in 2021. So I'm going to be going through the paper and the memo just so we can understand exactly where we maybe went wrong and the lessons we can learn from these papers. So this is the June paper, and this was out of about 150, and they gave you about 3 hours for that. So you can see the papers will always be broken up into section A, B, and C, which is 25 marks, 75 marks, and 50 marks. So let's go and have a look at this. And what you'll also see in the video after this one is I'm going to be going through the June IB paper, and I want you to have a look at that so you can see the similarities, where it differs, and how you can learn from that as well. So section A dealt with multiple choice questions. So let's go through these questions one by one. And obviously here with multiple choice, you are only selecting one of these. Please don't put A or B or A and C. You won't get the mark, okay? You only need to choose one. So 1.1 says a file, and then you've got to choose one of these, specifies the unique location of a file or folder in a file system. And that is a file path. Remember our file path, like C:\/ and then the particular folder name and the file name. That is our file path. 1.2, which one of the following properties does not? Okay, so immediately, which one does not refer to the metadata? So what is metadata? Metadata is the data of data. So when you look at the file properties, you're looking at the author, when it was created, all of that. So when we talk about this metadata of a word processing document, which one does not apply? So the normal data that we would find are things like, I just mentioned it, the author, the size, when it was created, right? And this, the format, that relates to things like bold, italic, underline, all the formatting that's applied. Does that have anything to do with these metadata items here? No. Okay, so our answer is going to be C. Then which one of the following here is an acronym for the term used to describe human errors and its influence on computer output? Now, when we look at these, some of them we will recognize immediately. These two we recognize as the small office home office user. DIM refers to our DIM RAM. And when I go back to the question, let's just see what they're asking. Which one of these is an acronym for the term used to describe human errors and its influence on computer output? So whatever the human does that's incorrect, it's going to influence what we get out. That's going to be D. This refers to garbage in, garbage out. So if the human being who's typing in the data makes an error, the computer is going to give an error when it comes out. Right? It can only do what it gets told to do, unless it's artificial intelligence. Okay, 1.4. On older computers, and then which one of these will slow down the transfer of data when compared to newer computers? So what is going to slow down the transfer of data when it comes to newer computers? And that is going to be what? Is the file size going to slow down the transfer of data? Is the lag, when we talk about this, we're talking about like streaming. Well, the images, no. It's going to be the hardware, right? The hardware will slow down the transfer of data. Think about the difference between your traditional hard drive and your solid state drive. Massive difference in terms of data transfer speed. 1.5. Which of these will determine the type of language and graphics used in a presentation program? Think about that. They're talking about the type of language that you're going to use in your PowerPoint presentation and the type of graphics. What is going to determine that? Well, that would be fairly easy. Is it the layout? No. The conclusion? No. The animation? No. It depends on the audience. Think about this. If you are presenting to preschoolers Are you going to use a different style of language and graphics? Yes. When you present to, you're doing like a business presentation, are you going to change the language and graphics? Of course. Okay. So that would be see your audience. Okay, let's continue. 1.6, a touchscreen is the most effective input device. Now remember, touchscreen is both input and output. The most effective input device when a user is required to do which of the following? Choose between limited options. Okay, sounds good. Capture large amounts of text. I mean, if you are typing in a whole lot of text, is a touchscreen the most effective way to? No. Select from a long list of unsorted options. Is a touchscreen going to be the best? Think about doing all that on your phone. No. Enter a large series of numbers. No. So just by process of elimination here, I know that it's going to be A, just choosing from limited options. So if I'm just choosing from 2 or 3 options, maybe doing some online shopping, I can just tap, 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 and that's fine. 1.7. Which of the following is an audio file? Now, let's just stop there. A wiki relates to a collaborative website. Portal is also a different type of website. And then we've got a vlog. Now, we know what our vlog is. It's like a video online diary, right? A podcast. We know that's mainly audio, although you do get video podcasts now. So, bearing that in mind, let's go. Which one of these is an audio file usually delivered over the internet? Now, just by what we said here and the fact that that's a video, we're going to go with D, our podcast, right? Most podcasts are mainly audio, but we've seen a lot of them now go onto the video side of things as well. 1.8. What is a malicious program that is used to initiate and what is this? This is a denial of service attack. That's when you've got a little program that's actually sending requests to servers like continuously. And those requests that are going through all the time, it actually means that other people who are requesting access maybe to the site or to some other portal or so on, they can't get access to that, right? So which of these would be the type of program that would initiate something like this? Would it be just a normal virus? No. What does a keylogger do? It captures your keystrokes, right? Does that sound like a program that's going to initiate this type of attack? No. What does a worm do? A worm replicates itself over the network. So again, just by process of elimination, without me even needing to really know what it is, a bot will do that. Okay? Right, we're almost done with question 1. 1.9. Which one of the following calculated fields will determine value-added tax of 15% in a database query? Okay, so first things first, when we're dealing with a database, because we're looking at a database calculated field inside of a query. So first things first, let me actually just zoom in here. When I create a calculated field in a query, this is what the first part should look like, because that's going to indicate to that query that this is the name of a new field. So the equals has nothing to do with it. So I already know it's not B. I already know it's not C. Then the other thing that gives it away is the fact that now that I've got the name, and D also has it over here, I see that there's no difference according to the 15%, but there is a difference in how the field is referenced. Now remember, in Excel we would just use a cell reference like A6 or E5 or whatever the case is. When we are dealing with access, you must use these brackets, these sort of squarish brackets over here. You cannot use these. It's not going to give you the answer. So this is a correctly referenced field, and for that reason it is going to be A. And then the last one from question 1, faking an email header to hide the actual origin of an email is known as what? And we should know this by now. Remember, piracy is where we are illegally copying things like movies and music and all these type of things. Copyright falls under something similar there, where we are looking at the rights that people have over their particular property, and you would need access to be able to use that. You're actually going to be paying for that. And farming, remember our fishing and farming? Fishing, where we are trying to bait a user into giving us information. Farming, where we're creating like fake websites. And spoofing is the one we are looking at. Spoofing is the process of creating a fake email header to hide the actual origin of the email. Okay, and that wraps up question number 1. Now let's look at question 2. Now, question 2, you can see here, this was matching the items, and we're looking at column A, where all your definitions are, and we've got 10 of them, but you can see that we have far more terms than we have definitions. Now, one of the ways of dealing with this is just looking through these terms, and this is why, guys, you do want to go and check out my TikTok channel, Cat with Mr. H, where I focus on all of these terms. I also do it through the YouTube shorts. So yeah, if you haven't, go and subscribe, go and follow. Let's get that done. Now, if we know these terms, then linking it up shouldn't be a problem. But let's go and have a look at how the definitions are worded as well, because I know some of you have some issues when it comes to the actual wording of this. So let's look at 2.1. It says a feature that refers to whether a printer can be used with a particular operating system. Now, we know what blogs are. We should have an idea. Our online diary. ADSL refers to our internet. This is a utility of Windows. This is a formula in Excel. Nothing sort of seems to be matching up here. NFC near field communication. Here's one. Compatibility. Remember, what are they saying? A feature that refers to whether a printer can be used with a particular operating system. If it can't work with that operating system, it means that it's not compatible. Okay? So 2.1 is P, compatibility. 2.2, one way of solving the problem of an application that has stopped responding. Now, we already know when an application stops responding and there's like nothing we can do. We try to close it and minimize it and all these things, and it doesn't work. What we can do is restarting, and there's our option, restarting the entire PC. Sometimes we can even use the task manager, but I don't see the task manager as an option here. So that would definitely be an option for me to go with restarting. Okay, 2.3, a specification that measures the quality of pictures taken by a camera. Okay, so now I know I'm going to be dealing with things. I'm going to be looking in terms of camera. I'm going to be looking at ISO rate, and I'm going to be looking at megapixels. Let's see what they have. But now they're saying a specification that measures the quality of pictures taken by a camera. And do I see anything over here? Yes, there we go. MP, what does that stand for? My megapixels. Okay. 2.4, a technology that can be used to establish a wireless connection between two devices, bringing them close together. So here's a couple of tips. Wireless connection, two devices, by bringing them close together. What did I say NFC was earlier? Near field communication. You know, the fact that you can take your card and just tap it to pay, that is near field communication. You bring in the devices next to one another or near one another. It's using wireless technology to actually facilitate the transfer. Okay. 2.5, I hope you're still with me. An attempt to access personal information by tricking a user into clicking on a link in an email. Now, we just mentioned that earlier. There we go. Phishing. You're trying to bait the user into clicking on something. That's going to then take them to sort of a fake website. That's where the farming comes in. Okay? So, phishing. 2.6, websites that read like a personal journal or online diary and are often updated with news and events that is going to be, what did we say our first one was? Blogs. Okay. 2.7. A spreadsheet function that returns both the date and time. I see them here. Remember I said this was an Excel function. So we've got now and we've got today. So what's the difference? Well, let's go and see. Let's go and see so you can check it out for yourself. So we're going to go equals now and equals today. Do you see today gives you date, now gives you date and time. What was our question? A spreadsheet function that returns both the date and time. What's that going to be? That is going to be now. Okay. 2.8. A system utility that reorganizes. Oh, reorganizes. Okay, that immediately tells me something I need to know. So a system utility, software that's built into Windows, things like disk cleanup, disk defragmentation, those type of things. This one reorganizes the parts of a file, so we already know. Just by that, it's going to be the disk defragmenter. And then 2.9, the term given to the practice of accessing a network without permission. So we don't want to break in, we want to hack. Okay, that's going to be hacking. And then the last one, 2.10, a hardware component that can be added to a computer to improve video editing performance. So anything to do with video editing? Yeah. No. Ah, yes. A graphics card, right? That means it's a separate graphics card that's going to be helping us improve video editing performance. And now we move over to question 3, and this is the last question within section A. And remember, section A comprised of 25 marks. It was 10 marks for our multiple choice. It was 10 marks for our match the items. And now it's going to be just 5 marks for true and false. And please, guys, don't get this wrong. Every time it's asked, people make this mistake. If something is true, it is true. If it's false, you have to actually indicate why. So in this case, they give you, as they always will, an example. Here they tell you the question, the initial startup instructions are stored in the ROM. If that is true, you just say true. However, look at what happens when it's false. Wi-Fi can only connect devices to each other up to 10 meters. That is false. And then you need to replace the underlined word. So let's go and do these 5. The wildcard, so that's the one that we might have to change. The wildcard character can be used in the find and replace feature of a word processor. But we're not going to change anything because that is true. 3.2, instant messaging. Right? Things like WhatsApp, iMessage, things like that. Instant messaging platforms they often use encryption to protect user data. That is true. I'm going to jump to 3.4. 3.4, the HDMI port on a computer carries both audio and video signals. Yes, that is true. Now, 3.3 and 3.5. Let's have a look at this. An email program may reject an attachment based on the date of the file? No, it won't do that. So the first thing is it's false. Secondly, the only time an email program will reject an attachment is based on the size or the type of extension. That's the only way that it's going to do that. And then 3.5, ad blocking programs identify and remove malware. Is that true? What is malware? Malware is malicious software. That's harmful software. Things like viruses, trojans, etc. Does an ad blocking program do that? No, that's false. What does that is an antivirus or anti-malware program. Right, and that is section A, guys. So let's continue now as we look at section B. Now you can see section B, there's question 4, question 5, Internet and Network Technologies, Question 6, information management, and 7, social implications. Oh, and question 8. Yeah, that makes up our 75. Okay, so let's go and have a look at this, and we're going to start with question number 4, which is now going to deal with system technologies. So now they start giving us scenarios. So here you can see they say a Soho computer user. So what is Soho? Our small office, home office user. This is someone who's working possibly from home. They've got maybe one entry-level computer. They're not going to do a huge amount of processing. They're probably going to have a little laser printer or a color inkjet printer. They're basically doing, a couple of maybe some invoicing, some printing, a little bit of business from home, but that's sort of what your Soho user is going to be. So this user must choose computer hardware and software for his auditing business. Study the table below to make him or to help him make the correct buying decision. Okay, well, let's help the individual here. So let's look at our table. You can see there's specifications to choose between. And then we've got a 19-inch monitor, 24-inch monitor. Now, what does this 4x3 mean? That means sort of a squarish monitor, like your old TVs. Okay, your 16:9. This is widescreen, typical of your LCDs, LED TVs these days. This one's got an SSD hard drive. This one's got an HDD, a traditional hard drive with the discs inside. So it's slower moving parts, but you're going to get more in terms of storage capacity. SSD, no moving parts, quieter, faster, a little bit more expensive, and you're going to get less storage if you look at comparing price-wise what you'll get. But this does aid the PC in working faster as well. This one's only got 2 gigs of RAM, whereas this one's got 16 gigs of RAM. And then the first one's got Windows 7 Pro, and the second one's got Windows 10 Pro. Now they're saying here the choice is the 24-inch monitor. You need to put in what the choice should be between these hard drives. They're saying the choice over here is 16. Obviously, the more RAM you have, the better your PC is going to work. And why would I go with a 24-inch 16 or a 24-inch widescreen monitor? Because I can see much more on the screen. I mean, you can imagine with the auditing, the massive spreadsheets that they'll have, right? And there you can see the reason is physically larger. Now, here they're saying my reason, whatever my choice is going to be here, is cheaper per gig of storage space. Wonder what that's going to be. What did I say between the two? The SSD, while it speeds up the PC, in terms of storage capacity, it is going to be more expensive than your hard drive. So this 4.1.1 is going to be my hard drive. The reason it's been chosen is because it is cheaper per gig of storage space. If I want a 1 terabyte hard drive, it's probably going to be double or triple the price to get one in an SSD. Then I'm choosing the 16 gigs of RAM. Why am I doing that? Well, I'm going to get more performance out of my PC. It's going to speed up my PC. It's going to help my programs to work better, faster, more efficiently. Okay. Then which one of the two am I going to choose? Windows 7 or Windows 10? Well, I'm obviously going to want to take the latest operating system possible, right? Which is Windows 10 Professional. And why am I going to do that? Well, you know what? The business users do require some of the latest features because he is running an auditing business. So he's going to be working with different companies. He wants to make sure that he's got the latest version so that it does work with all the different companies that he's going to be working with. Windows 7, because it's slightly outdated, it's not going to have as much support as well. And a lot of machines actually come preloaded with Windows 10 anyway. Okay, so that sorts out my table. Right, let's continue through this. Let's look at some of the questions. These are the typical things that come up, so you do want to pay attention to that. 4.2, why would an entry-level CPU be a good choice for a computer in a Soho office? Now, we already mentioned that earlier. We spoke about the fact that the Soho user will many times use an entry-level PC simply because it has enough processing power for what they need. And it would be unnecessary to go and spend a huge amount of money on those computers. Okay. So that's where I get my 2 marks. Number 1, it's got enough processing power. And number 2, it would actually be an unnecessary expense. 4.3, which software or hardware device could be added to a computer network to prevent unauthorized access of the network? And there's one device that we use over and over, and that is our firewall. Okay, our firewall, many routers that we have also have that sort of facility built in. Okay, that's where I get my 1 mark. You don't have to give a whole paragraph, folks. It's 1 mark. Always check the mark allocation. Then 4.4, a hard disk analysis shows that the hard drive is almost full. Well, what do you want to do? You want to empty those things. You want to move things off the hard drive. Empty the recycle bin, delete things. And I'm not even looking at the question. I'm just looking, I'm not even looking at the answer. I'm just looking at the statement that they've made. So already you know what's going to happen. When it's almost full, it's going to be slower. It's not going to give you as much performance. So let's go and look at the questions. 4.4.1. Explain 2 problems that may occur when the hard disk is full. Well, we just mentioned that now. You could be actually getting notifications that your hard drive is full. You're not able to save anything. Your system starts to slow down. The system might freeze from time to time. Some applications might not work properly. So those will all be indications that your hard drive is full. 4.4.2, name 1 system utility. Now remember what this is. This is a program that's built into the operating system. Name 1 of these type of programs that can remove unwanted files, and that is our disk cleanup. Right? Our disk cleanup can help us with that. 4.4.3, how can one free up some space on the hard drive other than removing files? Well, one of the ways that we can do that is by compressing some of our files or folders. We can also disable things like the system restore. So we can also change our virtual memory settings. Okay, so those are, I would probably say for 1 mark, I would just say, you know what, compress files and folders. That would be one of the easiest answers to give. Okay. 4.5, give 2 ways in which to solve the problem of a computer that switches on but does not load the operating system at all. Now remember what process this is. We are not talking about the booting process. And what is the booting process? From the time I switch my PC on to where the operating system actually loads, that is my booting process. So they want us to give 2 ways in which to solve a problem or solve the problem of a computer. It switches on, but it does not load the operating system. So where do you think the problem is lying? Well, think about it. When the PC switches on, it goes to the ROM. It gets the instructions from ROM. ROM checks the hardware. Everything is in place, plugged in properly. It gives you a little beep, and then it looks for the operating system on the hard drive. So it's checking the hardware. Everything seems to be okay, but it's not able to load that operating system. Well, what I could do is to open up the PC and first of all check that all the cards, the memory, all those things are seated properly in the motherboard. Make sure everything is where it needs to be. Everything is clipped in properly. I could also check maybe if there's an issue with the hard drive, maybe by replacing it with a different hard drive, maybe replacing the memory, anything like that. And I could also do maybe a startup repair. I could go through that process just to make sure that everything is okay. So you could use answers like reseating all the cards, checking for faulty hardware, and doing a reinstallation of the operating system, or doing some sort of boot up or startup repair as well. So you could use any one of those options. Then 4.6. They say to us here, explain 1 disadvantage of convergence. But in order to do that, we must ask, well, what is convergence? Remember, this is the term that refers to different technologies coming together into one device, like your smartphone. It has a video camera. It has an audio recorder. It has a number of, it's got GPS. It's got all these different things. that were separate technologies that came together in one device. So now that we know what they're talking about, what would a disadvantage of that be? Well, you could use any one of the following. Number one, the functionality of many devices is lost if the device fails. So yes, you've got everything in one device, but if that device breaks, it's gone, right? It's difficult to upgrade one particular hardware device of that particular device. So in other words, your camera, you want to upgrade your video camera because you're doing, TikToks and YouTube and all this type of thing. You can't do that. You'd have to upgrade the entire device, not just one part of it. Okay, so it does become difficult to do that. So you can use any one of those options. 4.7. Now they do, I think 4.7 and 4.8, they gave us a number of answers that I'm going to put up on the screen so you can see. They ask us here, why would you recommend using note-taking software? And we can really use any one of these, and I'm just going to move this onto the screen so you can see. We can use any of these options. It enables rapid capturing of ideas from a variety of inputs, access on the go, notes, real-time collaboration, can synchronize notes and sound recording, handwriting recognition, can convert handwritten notes into typed text, and it enables effective searches for items in notes. So anything like that, and anything that sort of keeps you still on this sort of track when it comes to your answer. So you might not have the exact same answer, but something that sort of alludes to this. I'm sure that would be okay as well. And then 4.8, give two functions of a web browser. Now, what is a web browser? Remember, this is a piece of software that helps you to navigate over the internet. Give me an example. Well, Google Chrome, Internet Explorer. Well, at least it's Edge now. Safari and Firefox. Okay, so that's what a web browser is. So they say, give two functions of a web browser other than the ability to view web pages, because that's in the definition. So what else can a web browser do? And again, I'm going to take you to the memo, and you can see all the different answers we have here relating to that. So it can store links, it can manage plugins, it can provide a pop-up blocker, enables caching, manages data usage. All of these things, folks, you could use any two of these answers. Right, 4.9, software should be updated regularly. Just think of the apps on your phone. They should be updated regularly. They want us to look at two challenges that a user may experience when updating their software. Well, you know what happens, why most of you end up pausing your updates, because it takes a lot of data, right? It can sometimes take a bit longer as well. Think of your computer and the automatic updates. Sometimes when you update, there are certain features that can be removed. Like I said, it can be time consuming, and you can have challenges when you interrupt that process as well. Okay. We do have other options, things like, sometimes bugs come into the equation when you are updating software. So it could sometimes cause those sort of problems, but anything along those lines. Okay. 4.9.2 says, give one way to ensure that the computer does not update while it is being used. Well, the only way we can do that is to use the task scheduler. Okay. On Windows, we have, as part of our utility software, a scheduler and scheduling, and we can actually go there and we can schedule a time that the PC must do updates. Okay, so simple answer there, our task scheduler. Then 4.10, they give us a screenshot here. They say a user tries to save a word processing document on the desktop by performing the action as shown in the screenshot below. What is this person doing? Okay. Why is this not going to work? Here they say, give the reason why the user is not successful and give a solution to this problem. Well, the reason is this individual has right-clicked on this file and they are telling Windows that they want to send it to the desktop. In other words, they want to create a shortcut on the desktop to this file. Is this what the person wanted to do? No, they want to save a word processing document onto the desktop. What are they going to have to do? Well, if they want to do it this way, they're going to have to right click and say copy, and then go and paste it onto the desktop. Alternatively, they could open the file and go, file, save as, and make sure that they've saved it to the desktop. Those are the ways. So that's the reason why this won't work and what they can do to sort that out. And then as we finish off question 4, they say, you find that your voice recognition software does not always correctly understand what you are saying. Well, that's normal, because it's usually American-based software. So it's waiting for an American accent. Okay. Here they say, then give 2 possible solutions to the problem. Now, some of the reasons, and they give us a few here as to why it's not maybe working. We need to check our microphone. We can adjust the gain on the microphone. We can reduce the background noise. Try to speak clearer or slower. And here's probably the biggest one. Spend some time training the voice recognition software. The voice recognition software has to get used to the way you speak and the way you pronounce words and phrases in order to recognize what you are saying. Okay, so that is vitally important. I would just say something like try to speak clearer, spend some time training the voice recognition software, and that'll give me my 2 marks. And that's question 4 of section B. Right, so our next question deals with the internet and network technologies. This is question number 5. First things first, they're asking us for 2 advantages of grid computing. Now, what is grid computing? When we deal with grid computing, we're talking about combining the resources of different computers for the purpose of doing what? Of accomplishing a specific task. So what are some of the advantages? Well, I can use combined resources. That's number 1. When I do this, it saves time and money. So please don't just say, and I actually want to show you here from the memo. Here they tell us the use of a combination of resources saves time and money. When we mark, we don't just accept saves time and money. You need to qualify that statement. How does it save time and money? Okay, so that'll be one of the answers. And then you could also say solves complex problems that need a huge amount of processing power. And if one computer fails, the task can be taken over by another. So there are a number of advantages to grid computing. Okay, guys, don't forget, in the description, I've left a link to a Google Drive that's got the question paper and the memo as well. Right, 5.2. Here we've got a diagram of some sort of network. You can see a network D. We've got a fairly big computer over here. We've got a printer. We've got 1, 2, 3 computers, and then we've got C over here that links us to the internet. So if I just look at these where we are now, what do you think these things are? First of all, if I look at C, if that's some sort of device that's linking me to the internet, what do you think that is? That's going to be a router. It could be a modem, some sort of gateway that takes me from my network to the internet. So any one of those router, modem, network, any one of those would suffice over here. What then would be B? Okay, what would that be? This massive computer, you can see a lot bigger than my normal computer, but it's linked to all of these. This is going to be my server. So if this is the server, and I've got a link to this device that links up to all the others, what hardware device do you think this is that's got cables linking up all these machines to it and then it to the server? That is going to be our switch. Okay, you can also say hub, but generally we would like you to indicate that this is a switch. And then I've got my printer over here. Now, why do I have the printer connected to the server? Because generally I have one printer and then I give everybody access to that printer. Therefore, I'm providing the service of printing. So we know what A, B, and C is, and then they ask us 5.2.2, what type of network is network D? Now, when we talk about a type of network, we're talking about LAN, MAN, WAN, GAN. Is this a HAN, a home area network? No. We're talking about a big server here, so this is going to be some sort of business. And because they're not showing a number of different areas, they're actually showing this dotted line here indicating that this is one particular area. This is going to be a local area network. You can also say it is a client server network, but either way, you'll still get the marks for that. Okay, so hope you're understanding this as we go through. 5.3. Give 2 reasons why it is better to turn off a Bluetooth connection on a tablet or smartphone when connectivity is not required. Now, there are a couple of reasons, and I'm going to show you here also from the memo from time to time. Here you can see a number of the reasons. It may interfere with other wireless signals. Well, you want to avoid being tracked. It reduces the possibility of hacking attacks because you've got that Bluetooth on all the time. It prevents auto-connect. I mean, how many times haven't you been in the car or at home and then your device automatically connects because the Bluetooth is on? And probably the biggest one, it saves on battery power. When you're using Wi-Fi and you're using Bluetooth, it does place a strain on the battery of the device. Okay, just so you know. Then 5.4, suggest 2 changes that would make the following password more secure. Now, how many characters? We know our password should generally have 8. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's fine. But can you see a problem here? Look at the zeros. I've got like 2 zeros here. I've got 3 zeros in total. So I don't want to be using those all the time. What should my password be? It should have 8 characters. It should have a capital letter. Do I have a capital letter? No, I don't. Do I have a special character like the @ symbol or a hash sign? No, I don't. And I can take out these repeating characters. So maybe instead of this 0, I could put in a hash. And instead of this one, I could put in the @ symbol, right? Then I could change this F to a capital F, and then I would have a more secure password. Okay, so remember our passwords should always include a capital, a special character, a number, and a lowercase letter. And we want to avoid repeating letters. 5.5, when you make an online payment, some service providers will send a one-time password on your smartphone. Why is it necessary to enter this OTP if you've already signed in with your username and password? Well, I think it's fairly simple. I mean, this is what we call two-factor authentication. You sign in, but then they still want you to put another code or PIN in. This is just for extra security. For extra security, to make sure you are who you say you are. This becomes a huge thing when people steal your cell phone. And the only reason they'd want to do that and your card is so that when they do anything and there's a code that comes to the phone, they have that. However, if somebody's stolen your wallet, but you've still got your card and they want to, withdraw or do any transactions, and your account is set up with two-factor authentication, there's nothing that they'll be able to do because those codes keep coming back to you and you are obviously not giving it to them, and then they can't make use of that. So extra security is just the big answer there. Right, there we go. Why would you use the BCC? What is BCC? That's blind carbon copy. Why would you use this feature on email when sending an email? Well, simply because this BCC feature, in fact, let me put it this way. When you send an email, you have, and let me do something. So here I've got my email, and you can see I've got 2, and I can type in somebody's email address there. And if I go CC, that is a carbon copy, which means the person who's receiving the mail here, who I'm sending it to, they will receive that, or they will see who I am copying in on the mail. In other words, these people over here will also receive a copy of this email. However, when I go to the BCC, The BCC is the blind carbon copy. This now means that the person that I'm sending it to will not see who I'm sending that mail to in the BCC. However, it'll still go to those people. So let's say I'm sending an email to a teacher at school, and I CC my wife. She'll receive a copy. The teacher will see that the mail went to her as well. But then I BCC my kids as well, because I want them to see that the email went there, but the teacher mustn't see that they've seen it. Okay? Hope you're with me on that. Right. Then let's see. 5.7. What type of communication medium is used in long-distance undersea cables, such as CCOM, that connect Africa to other continents for internet access? Okay, big one there. What type of communication? Now, when we talk about communication medium, we're talking about how these areas are connected together. So, how is the internet from Africa connected to the other continents in the world? It's connected via fiber optic cable. So that's the communication medium. Right? Don't get confused with the question. They're asking you what type of communication medium. In other words, how are we connecting, or what are we using to connect the continent of Africa to other continents for internet access? Okay, that's all they're asking you over there. And then we've got FTP technology. That is our file transfer protocol. Give two disadvantages of FTP technology for the transfer of larger files on the internet. And I'm going to use the memo for this one so you can see the different options. First of all, it is more complex. Modern web browsers are dropping out of support for FTP. In some cases, you've got to resort to a specialized piece of software. It does lack security, so it's vulnerable to hacking. And there can be interruptions and restarting that takes place that actually slows down the entire process. So any two of those. And again, if you have a valid disadvantage that might not be listed here, that would also be okay. Right, so that takes us to the end of question 5. And now we're going to move on to question number 6. So question 6 deals with information management. And we can see a word that's coming through here called the PAT. All right, that dreaded PAT. So let's look at this. First thing, they say, explain 2 ways in which a teacher can find out whether learners are guilty of plagiarism in their PATs. Well, you know what? Just from my own experience, I can take your PAT and I can go and put it into a plagiarism checker. I can compare your work to other learners' works. Other learners' work. Like I said, there are online plagiarism checkers. I can take certain sentences out of your PAT and go and check that online. I can check the sources that you've put in your PAT as well. So, yeah, there are a number of different ways. 6.2, state 2 ways in which a chart or graph can be made easier to interpret when it's included in a report such as the PAT. Well, what items actually make a chart easier to read? The fact that you have a title, a legend, an axis, axis labels, data labels, colors, trend lines, any of those things, they make a chart more readable and easier to understand. 6.3, a tourism learner created an electronic survey, like a Google form, which included the question, how long was your stay at the hotel? Respondents could choose from the following options in a drop-down list: 1 day, 2 days, 3 days or more, longer than 5 days. Right, here's our questions now. Give 2 advantages of using drop-down form fields in an electronic questionnaire. Well, one of the advantages is that they are restricted to only these options. It's also easier for them just to choose from one of these. It reduces spelling errors, when people need to type these things out themselves. It's very quick to answer as well, and, well, it saves space on the questionnaire. Okay? So any 2 of those. Then the next question, which one of the options in the example above should be removed? And then we need to motivate your answer as to why you're saying that. Now, again, let's go. How long was your stay at the hotel? 1 day, 2 days, 3 days or more? Now have a look at that. 3 days or more. Why must I then say longer than 5 days? Because 3 days or more covers anything from 3 days up. So longer than 5 days I don't actually need, because it's overlapping with 3 days or more. Okay? So please just read these things carefully when it comes to answering. And then the last one for question 6. Explain 2 ways in which to ensure the logical grouping and flow of information in a formal report. And here we go. Have a look at these answers. 2 ways to ensure the logical grouping and flow of information in a report. Use headings, subheadings, group-related information. Does it sound familiar? Yes. Use a table of contents. Note the order of precedence. In other words, never start with a conclusion ahead of the findings. You want to keep the order. Do you remember when in grade 10 you did the PAT for the first time? And there was a particular order in which you needed to do things, especially when it came to phase 2. And then in grade 11, phase 3. Right? This is exactly what they are asking you here. To ensure the logical, in other words, step by step, your intro, your body, your findings, your conclusion. And the flow of information. How is the information flowing from point A all the way through to Z? Right? It's going through a logical order. And you also want to remain consistent and not use fonts or different types of fonts all over the place. Now let's look at question number 7, and we're dealing with social implications. And the question that always comes up is define the concept of social engineering. Now, what is this? This is the act of misleading or manipulating people to obtain confidential information for fraudulent purposes. Okay, there's the definition. Check it out. Make sure you take that down. The act of misleading or manipulating people, you can see that's 1 mark. To obtain confidential information, your 2nd mark for fraudulent purposes. So that's how you get your marks as well. Then 7.2 discuss 2 negative implications for a company when employees do private tasks on company computers during working hours. Now, think about that. 2 negative implications for the company. Not for you, it is for the company. Does the company lose out on anything when their employees are doing private tasks on company computers? Well, yes, because there's going to be less time for their work, right? Less time for them to do the work that the company requires. They could possibly lose revenue. There's the risk of malware because they're doing their own private stuff. The employer or the company may be liable for crimes committed at the workplace. Data costs for the employer are going to rise. Yeah, have a look. Company information may be hacked, and there could be a reputational risk to the company. Okay, so these are just some of the negative implications for a company where employees are using the work computers for private tasks. Because we're not saying what sort of private tasks. It could be something legitimate, could be something illegal. We don't know, but they're just saying private tasks. Okay, let's continue. Suggest 1 software technology that can be used with internet connected cameras to identify potential criminal activity. Okay, so 1 software technology, well, the one that is running through the world at the moment, which is AI, okay, artificial intelligence. We can use that to enhance the quality of images. We can use some sort of push technology to alert a user when movement is detected by the camera. We can also use facial recognition, and in different instances like number plate or license plate recognition as well. So those are just a few of the different technologies that we can use out there. Then 7.4, state 2 strategies that learners could use to discourage cyberbullying. So what can you do? Well, you can report the offender. You can block the offender. You can not respond to their messages. And I know that's difficult. So report them, block them. Don't respond to them. Be selective in how you use social media. And I know it's difficult, but don't make controversial posts. Don't open yourself up to harassment. I'm not saying it's your fault, but we need to be careful because we know how people are. So you just want to be careful as to what you actually post online. Then 7.5, give one reason why some people might unknowingly trust a program that potentially contains a Trojan. Why? Because a Trojan, remember the definition of a Trojan? It pretends to be something useful. Pretends to be a useful program. So it's pretending to be that, but it's not. That's why people might unknowingly trust it. Then we have an advert here, beautiful chair. Oh, 1,500. Okay. The reason I'm saying that is because this is a very nicely designed chair, like a nice ergonomically designed chair. You can see that it will fit to the shape of my back, of my neck. It'll give me that support. I love this. Very nice. 7.6.1. Let's have a look. What are they saying to us? Give the general term used to describe the design of furniture and other devices that improves the working environment. Well, just by looking at this, I answered that, which is ergonomics. And then, as usual, when they bring that topic up, they always wanted to ask me something on that. And here they ask, why will the advertised chair be beneficial for a computer user? Did you hear what I said earlier? It will give me lovely back support, neck support. It's going to give me adjustable height. It's giving me arm rest. Everything I need because I'm going to be sitting in front of the computer for long periods of time. So it gives me comfort in order to do that. Right. And that's question 7 out of the way. Right. Let's look at question number 8. Solution development. And many times you'll find that solution development has to do with taking our practical work and bringing it or asking it from a theory perspective. So let's have a look at this. Question 8. Give 2 different methods to set the indents. Remember what those indents are? In a word processing document. Remember, we could use the increase indent feature. We can use the ruler. We can use the particular style as well. So any one of those. The restrict editing feature on the developer tab will allow you to control the number of changes that others can make to your electronic form. Give one example of how the editing is limited using this feature. Well, this allows me to, for example, put the attribute of read only onto my document, which means people won't be able to do anything. They'll only be able to open it and read it. I can also, with this feature, force changes to be tracked. If anyone makes any changes, I can allow comments. I can allow them to only fill in the form. So any one of those reasons are okay. 8.3, you try to open a particular word processing file. So you're trying to open a Word document, which you know you definitely saved on your computer. Explain why this file doesn't appear in the list when you browse for the file. Well, it could be that when you open, and I just want to show you here, maybe when you went file, open, and you looked for a particular file, just go browse. Maybe you left it as all Word documents. Maybe you didn't say, like all files. So it's not actually showing because maybe the file has a hidden attribute to it. So you can't even see it because it is hidden. Maybe you even trying to open with the wrong application. Okay, so those are all different reasons why that might happen. Then 8.4, they give us a screenshot here of an Excel spreadsheet. They say, what is the purpose of the small square in the bottom right-hand corner of cell C1? So that little box over there indicated by the arrow. What is the purpose? Well, we know that the purpose of this is the autofill or copy function. And what do? We click on that and we drag it down and it performs the autofill function for us. Okay. 8.5. Why should the table range in a VLOOKUP function have an absolute cell reference? Now, don't worry about the fact that they're talking about a VLOOKUP function and the table range. Why do we use an absolute cell reference? We use that because we are referring to a particular cell so that when we copy it down, when we use this autofill feature, that it doesn't change the reference to that cell. Okay, so in this scenario, we would then say, well, when the VLOOKUP function is dragged down via autofill, when we're going to copy and paste it, it will still refer to that particular table range. That's not going to change. Right, then 8.6. Then 8.6 here we can see, explain how the data in the original data table below was processed to give the data shown in the processed data table. And here we can see our original data. We can then see the processed one. We can see that's been sorted by department. We've got our prices and the number of stock as well. So there's my answer. I've sorted this. This has been sorted according to departments first. Then it's sorted according to the number in stock. A school wishes to send out letters to the parents of grade 12 learners using the mail merge feature of the word processor. The details of the grade 12 parents are captured in a spreadsheet. First question, give one reason why the insert merge field option is not available. Well, maybe the file that they're linking to, the source that they're linking to is not available or it's not correct. It could be, an incorrect data source would probably be the easiest option to choose here. Right? Remember, we can only use insert merge field with these merge fields if the data source is correct. So if the data source is not correct, if we haven't linked it up correctly, then this is not going to work. Right? When they say the option is not available, it doesn't mean that it's not there. It means that it's grayed out. Okay? So when it's grayed out, it means that we don't have a proper data source in place. 8.7.2, assume that the problem in this one has been resolved and the merge fields were inserted correctly. Give a reason why some of the expected records do not display in the preview of the mail merge. Well, maybe there were errors in creating the filter or recipient list. Maybe some data is actually missing from this, because remember this now. Once I've inserted my data source and I insert my merge fields, all of this is based on the data source. So if there's a problem with the data source, the result, remember that term garbage in, garbage out? If the problem is with the data source, then that's why I might get an issue here. So we can simply say there could be a problem with the data source itself. Then 8.8. Database queries are used to analyze data. On which database objects can a query be based? Well, a query can be based on either a table or a query. That's it, right? So you can choose either one of those. How can you determine the name of the object on which a query is based? Well, we're going to have to open the query in design view and then view the name of the object. Let's go and see. Let me open any one over here. And when I go into my query, and I go to query design, there I can see that my query is based on this table. And if there are others, I'll be able to select that. Right, 8.9, as we finish off section B, draw a diagram to show what will be displayed in a web browser when this HTML code is run. Now, here we can see we've got a border. We've got one row, and that's where the row ends. Inside that row, we can see the term description is going to be there, but it's going to span 2 columns, which means it needs to be another row. Okay, so I've now got another row, and in that row, I've got 2 items. And if you would have done that correctly, then this is actually what you should have drawn. This is what it will look like. There you can see I've got my table border. Then I've got 1 row, and I've got 2 rows. Do I have 2 rows? 1, 2. Because I've got 2 entries in that row, it means I've got 2 columns. 1, 2. And this is why this description, this heading, wants to span over 2 columns. Right, guys. So that brings us to the end of section B. And now we get to section C, the one that causes the most problems, the integrated scenario. So this is question 9. You can see it's just one question, and we've got 25 marks, and then, question 10 as well with 25 marks. Sometimes this does come up as one question, so don't be surprised if you've only got one question or if they've split it as 2. I think in the 2022 one, it's 50 marks, but yeah, it can differ. Okay, let's go through this. Here's our scenario. So this means now that all the questions that are going to come or follow are based on the scenario. The COVID-19 pandemic necessitated health screening at the entrances to all public facilities such as schools, libraries, and clinics to limit the spread of the coronavirus. So this is your scenario. So everything is going to be based on this. Put your mind into this scenario. Picture it. Process it. And now let's go ahead and answer the questions. 9.1 says to it, give 2 reasons for using ICTs instead of pen and paper to record and manage health screening data of learners and teachers at school. Well, first of all, we know from grade 10 already, we use ICTs because we can capture more efficiently, more effectively. It's easier to share data, see patterns, process everything. There's green computing as well, which means we save paper. And because we're dealing with a virus and we're using this technology, there's less handling of like paper and pens and things like that, where any sort of transfer of this virus can take place. So anything like that. The next one, the principal suggests that they buy an electronic tablet to record the health screening data of people entering at school. And I know a lot of schools actually did that. Give 2 reasons why you agree with the principle that a tablet would be better than a laptop computer for this purpose. Well, a tablet is smaller. A tablet is more convenient. It's got a longer battery life. You've got your graphical input. I mean, you can use QR codes if you want to scan that. Tablets are easier to sanitize than sanitizing your laptop. Yeah, good luck with that. And low-end laptops are going to be more expensive than a low-end tablet. Okay? And for that matter, I mean, you could even use like a smartphone or something like that. So that's why you would definitely agree with your principle in this regard. Give 2 specs or features of a tablet that you would look for when buying a tablet, and there it's underlined, for this purpose. So remember what it's been used for. Remember, in grade 10, I think grade 10 and 11, we spoke about factors that influence the buying of ICT devices. We know what it's going to be used for. Does it need a massively fast processor? No. Does it need, 32 gigs of RAM? No, it doesn't. Right? So what are you going to be looking at? You're going to be looking at the battery life, the screen size. You're going to be looking at, just a decent amount of RAM, the CPU, whether it can connect to cellular or Wi-Fi. Right? Those are some of the specs that you are going to be looking at. Then we continue. The new tablet needs to be connected to the school network. So do you see why we looked at this in 9.2.2? So that the caption of data can be sent to the school server. So we should have bought one that has Wi-Fi capability so it can link to the school network. How will the tablet communicate with the server at the school? And I've just said it now, either via a USB cable directly connected to the server, which is not practical, but generally connected over Wi-Fi. The tablet does not always connect to the network at the school entrance. Think about this. You're standing at the school gate doing this. It doesn't always connect, which is already telling you that at times it does. How is it connecting? We just said it's connecting wirelessly. So what do we actually have in here? We are having connectivity issues. Okay? The school gate might be too far in terms of the Wi-Fi range. So suggest 2 ways that we can connect this problem. Well, we can restart our network devices. We can put in a stronger access point, or we can even put in an access point that is closer to the gate. Those would be practical solutions. 9.4, here's a screenshot of part of the spreadsheet. Below it shows some health screening data of the learners, and here you can see date, time, temperature, cough, yes or no. Oh, I remember all this. Yeah, I used to stand at the gate doing this, so I remember checking folks every single day. Right, 9.4.1. The spreadsheet feature, or which spreadsheet feature, can be used to get rid of the unnecessary spaces in row 2. Let's have a look at row 2. Do you see those spaces there? Do you see those spaces? Right, we can use the find and replace feature. We want to find blanks and delete them. Okay, 9.4.1. 9.4.2, which spreadsheet feature would you use in column D to automatically highlight a value if the temperature is above, well, there we already know, 38 degrees. That is going to be conditional formatting. Remember, conditional formatting, we apply that and we put in a rule, and it will highlight those automatically for us. 9.4.3, give the spreadsheet function. Do you see? Do you see? It's all based on the scenario, but it's asking us practical questions that you would use to determine how many learners have a cough based on the data in column E. In other words, we want to see those who have a yes. So what are we going to use? We're going to count if it matches up with yes. Right? So we're going to use our count if feature. 9.5 below is the design view of a database table with learner information and the field properties of the date of birth field. Okay, so there's date of birth, short text. We can see required no. Okay, so all that's okay. So they give us that. They've got a few questions. Number 1, suggest 3 improvements that could be made to the date of birth field to ensure the entry of valid data. Okay, so one of the first things I pick up is the fact that our date of birth, because what are we typing in there? We're typing in a date, right? So we should have the date picker where it's actually going to bring up a calendar. Do we have that anywhere here? No, I don't see that. The data type should already be date type or date time. Do I see that here? No, I don't. The format should be changed. Well, once the data type is changed, then our format can be changed to short date or long date, depending on what we want. And we can even put in an input mask. So any of those, the date picker, the data type needs to be changed, and the format needs to be changed as well. Then the next one, why is it good practice to complete the description options for each field in the design view of our table? So this section over here, why is it good practice for us to do that? Well, when somebody is going to be working in this area, it's actually good to complete this so that they understand what you are actually requiring from these particular fields. So somebody might not fully understand, but if you put in a few notes here, then they know, this is what it's trying to get from the learner. This is, the type of data that they are actually looking for. So it just helps with the understanding of the data that's required for the records. Let's continue. Give 2 reasons for making a cloud backup of data. Well, number 1, I don't want to take up space on my actual hard drive, right? I want to actually copy that data somewhere else. I want to make sure that I've got a backup at a remote location. And when I back up to the cloud, it's more secure than backing up data on my actual hard drive. Okay. Now, I do just want to make a note of this. They do not want you, and I know I said it at the beginning, but I'm going to make this clear. They don't want us or you to say that it frees up space on the hard drive. So while that is the logical one, please, they tell us don't use that, right? They want us to use things like data can be accessed from anywhere in the world with an internet connection. Backup is to a remote location. It is more secure than your normal, hard drive on your PC. So use those options, please. Then 9.7 state 2 ways in which the school could share the learner's health information electronically with the district office. Well, you could WhatsApp it. You could email the data. You could SMS the data. You could give them a link, via Google Drive or something like that to access the data. Maybe there is an app that's got a central database or something like that. So anything like that would be accepted over here. And then as we bring question 9 to an end, here we see the learners must have accurate information about COVID-19 to protect themselves from possibly contracting the virus. And then we've got 3 questions. The life orientation teacher gives the learners a long website address that links to factual information. What service would you use to make it easier to enter or remember this website address? Well, what do we want to do? They're telling us long website address, which means they don't want that. And what we have for that is a URL shortener. Okay, remember those URL shorteners? Again, guys, remember I've got videos to all this stuff. And examples would be websites like bit.ly or bit.ly and tinyurl. If you know of any other ones and they are valid, you can use them as examples. 9.8.2 explain 2 ways in which the creators of fake information make the information seem real or believable. Well, how are they able to do that? Well, we can cite experts incorrectly. We can pretend that the information, or they can pretend the information comes from a reliable author. Many of us don't check these things. The information, when it's presented to you, can be done so in a very professional and technical manner that seems on the surface as if it's reliable. And then it's sometimes shared by people you normally trust on social media. So this fake information could have come to you from friends. And it sometimes comes with a lot of statistics that's actually made up, right? It's not even real. So just when you look at this question and they're telling you, asking you 2 ways in which the creators of this fake information make it seem real or believable, just remember, they can cite experts, they can, pretend it comes from proper authors, they can give you stats, all this type of thing to make it seem that it is actually believable. And then the last one, state 2 ways in which learners can avoid being fooled into believing fake information. So we know what this is now, we know what they can do. How do we stay safe? How can we avoid it? Well, when we see these sources over here, check the accuracy of the sources. Check to see if the author is credible. Use checking services, right? Check other websites, other places to see if they've actually said anything about this particular information or this particular site. Also check the spelling and grammar. Check when last the site was updated. All of those things help you to stay safe. Right, and that's question number 9. Then we move into our very last question for this June 2021 DBE paper, our National Senior Certificate paper. And we are continuing with our scenario on COVID-19. So the various COVID-19 protocols that were imposed by the government to restrict the spread of the virus impacted on school attendance. So the government imposes these rules. Some learners are not coming to school. what can now be done. So keep that in your mind as we process through this. ICTs allow for teaching and learning to continue when learners are not at school. A lot of us went through this, right? We know we're talking now about learning from home, online learning. 10.1.1, define the concept of mobile learning or M-learning. This is basically education and training that's delivered over the internet. So they want 3 marks. I'm going to give you this whole definition so you can get this. We can get the full 3 marks. Have a look at the memo here. Education and training delivered over the internet, 1 mark. Using mobile devices such as, so you could give any of these examples, that's your 2nd mark. That can be accessed anywhere, anytime, or at home. So this is what your definition needs to be when it comes to M-learning. Okay. Now, name 2 kinds of electronic resources that teachers can share with learners. Well, they can share online lessons, virtual meetings, videos, quizzes, podcasts, audio files, anything like that. They can even share my videos. Okay, so anything like that can be shared. 10.1.3. Give 2 examples of how virtual reality. Okay, so stop there. What is virtual reality? Remember, when I put a virtual reality headset on, I'm now immersed in a whole different world. It's a fully digital world that I'm completely immersed in. I don't see anything of the normal reality around me. I'm looking at everything that's within this digital space. So how can it enhance the learning experiences of learners? Well, you can do virtual 3D educational tours. You can simulate science experiments. You can develop their skills through various simulations. I mean, you've seen flight simulators and racing simulators, right? All of these can enhance the learning experience. And you can use any of those examples. Then name 2 word processing features that teachers can use to give learners feedback on their work. And we know this. What about track changes, comments, highlights, hyperlinks or embedded links? Right? Any of those you can use. 10.2. Give the generally accepted term that describes a lack of access to ICTs. And this is 2 terms or 2 words. The digital divide, right? The digital divide. Now, 10.3, the ICT administrator designed a website to keep the parents informed of e-learning or M-learning strategies at the school. State 2 advantages of using an ISP for hosting the website. Well, if we use the ISP, it means they have to see to everything. There's no need for storage on your servers. They do the maintenance. They check the software and the hardware. There's reduced downtime. So if something happens at the school, it doesn't affect anything because the ISP is handling that. The school doesn't need a specific server for that because everything is handled by the ISP. 10.3.2, give 2 reasons why an image does not display in a web browser, even though the correct HTML code is used. Well, it could be that the picture is not in that folder. It could be that the picture is not available. The browser might be blocking the picture. Maybe the settings don't work. Or it's not recognizing that particular file type that you're using in your code. So you need to go and check that. I know sometimes there's an issue with the extension, like with JPEG, because it could be .jpg or .jpeg. So you just need to check on that. 10.3.3, explain why some parents who view the website on their smartphones may not see the same website layout as the one on the computer. Well, there are a number of reasons for this, but generally the layout of a website may not have been designed for a smartphone or for a smaller screen. Remember that the screen on your smartphone is a lot smaller than your PC. So what happens is these website designers actually have to make sure that they design the website to adapt to the various screen sizes. So if they're not seeing all of that, it could very well be that the layout was not designed for that. Okay, here's our next one. Teachers and learners will have to upload and download learning material. So let's think of our Google Drives, right? Let's just think of that for a moment. Now, what do they say to us? Why is it ideal to have a broadband connection for e-learning? Why? Because it means we need, well, not means it needs, we will have access to a high-speed internet connection. Broadband is going to mean that it's always on. It's going to allow us to move large volumes of data. Any one of those will help. But that's why we want to have a broadband connection. Now, what's the advantage of having an unshaped, oh, here we go, an unshaped line. What is an unshaped line? What does that mean? Now, in order to understand unshaped, you need to understand shaped. So when we talk about a shaped internet line, we're talking about one where during peak times of usage, the ISP can actually prioritize certain features on your line. So for example, during peak time, they might prioritize downloads only and limit the speed of uploads. They might prioritize emails and general browsing as opposed to downloading. And that just means you'll get more speed for one and less for the other. So when a line is unshaped, it simply now means that there is no limit on that. They're not going to limit that speed. They're not going to prioritize anything. You will just have, your full speed up and down. And that's basically the advantage. I've just given you the answer to that. All right. Do you see that by just trying to understand what they are asking from you, you can get the answer. Okay. How can one avoid information overload? So again, I'm going to ask you now, what is information overload? That's when there's just too much information coming at you from all sources. So how do you avoid it? Well, you need to give priority to certain tasks. You need to take regular breaks from your devices. Organize your schoolwork according to a particular subject. Don't just say, well, I'm just going to study everything within an hour. No. Also, when you are browsing through the net and you are clicking on various things, limit the number of places you go to. Limit the number of links that you follow, right? So that you're not bombarded with all of this information. And then we're on our last page now. 10.5. The school received a donation of computing devices to assist learners. Give 2 criteria to determine if the donated devices can be used for learning purposes. Now, you know how it goes. Sometimes when things are donated, they don't really work or they're in a bad condition. So how am I going to actually check whether, the learners can use it? Well, I need to check if the devices are in order. I need to see if they are, too old. Maybe they're not compatible with the current software I'm using. Maybe the software on them is not compatible with the hardware that I'm using. Check that they have enough storage space. What sort of operating system are they using? Does it come with a mouse and keyboard? Are they laptops? Are they desktops? All of those type of things. That's how you'll actually determine whether it can be used. When they talk about for learning purposes, basically they mean within the classroom. Okay, will you be able to use it for CAT? Will you be able to use it for any other subjects? 10.6, name 2 technologies that can assist in controlling the stock of the devices. So if I, get all these devices into the school, how can I make sure, to basically keep track of them? I can use barcodes. I can use scanners. I can put it in a database. I can even use RFID tags. I can use any of those technologies to make sure that I not only keep track of where they're going, but to make sure that I know how many there are as well. Right, and my last one, 10.7, the school uses a database to keep track of the sponsors and the donated devices. Give one reason why a database is more suitable than a spreadsheet to store information of donated items. Well, I can easily capture it. I can pull queries from it. I can easily do reports from it. I can use functions in my report. Remember all of the things that we don't like to do in Access? Yes, I can do all of those things in there, whereas I can't do that in my spreadsheet. So it is more suitable. Point 2, a spreadsheet graph will be used to indicate the value of devices donated by each sponsor. How would you create this graph without having to retype the data from the database into the spreadsheet? Well, one way I can do this is by importing the data from the database. I can export the data to a spreadsheet, or I can copy and paste that data into my spreadsheet. So I don't have to type it over again. So any one of those, I'm either going to import it export it or just copy and paste the data to a spreadsheet. And then the last one that finishes off our entire paper, the graph that they're talking about here must be inserted into a word processing document. So it's got to be inserted into Word. How would you ensure that the graph updates when the data in the spreadsheet changes? Remember when I paste a spreadsheet into my Word document, if I insert it, right? If I insert that, I can use the option link to graph. I can select that it updates. And in that way, whatever changes are made on this spreadsheet, it will come through into my Word document as well. And there you have it, folks. That is the end of section C. That brings us to our grand total of 150 marks for our DBE June 2021 paper. And I hope this really is going to help you. Don't forget to like and subscribe and to share this with everyone that you know will find value. Thanks so much for joining me, and I'll see you again when I do the prac paper and also our 2022 exam papers.